allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's the November 13th, 2023 study session for the City Council. It's 5:30 p.m. We have 8 items on the docket for tonight, and our first item is discussion of PL 2329, Resolution 5923, the Village Phase 1 Minor Subdivision, and with us is our Public Works Director, Hans Mercer. Welcome, Hans.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. All right, tonight we have the PL 23-29 Resolution 5923, the Village's Phase 1 Minor Subdivision. This subdivision is located in the Wrench Ranch Phase 2 area, east of I-90, west of Decker Road. The request is to subdivide 179 acres of Tract 1 and some unplatted land into 5 lots, zoned Gateway Master Plan. Tract 1 from the original Phase 2 is the school site. The applicant has negotiated with the school site to change the shape of that lot with an agreement dated September 9th. The unplatted parcel is zoned mixed use and commercial and residential. So here's the school site. You'll see on the plat it's going to just stay in the same location but change some little bit of the geometry here. And the other minor subdivision plats cuts out some tracks adjacent to Decker Road here. It's all zoned Gateway. So this is the master plan. You can see we have some commercial, mixed use, residential areas here. That's the original school tract, just for clarity. And there is the plat that shows the updated geometry here. And we have tract 3, 4, and 5. So this becomes new tract 2 here. So these are the parcels getting cut out. Now this 60-foot access here, it's into YDOT for review to get an access onto Decker Road. It's not approved yet, so you won't see this come before you for final decision until that is approved by YDOT. But the idea there is that all access from these lots will be through what'll eventually be a city street off of Decker Road. No direct access from Decker Road. There's a list of notifications we sent out and the key points. So there is a master plan to follow. They just wanted to get some of these lots carved out, probably to transfer ownerships. And actually one of them's coming into the design review committee here very shortly for some another subdivision as well. But overall, there will be a master plan for this entire area they're working on soon. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Hans? I just have one that has nothing to do with my old school board days, I guess, but the school board was all right with changing that lot?
That's correct, Mayor. And they're actually, in doing so, they have a signature block on the plat that they will have to sign.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, Hans, you're still on. Number 2, discussion of PL 2324, Resolution 5323, Wrench Ranch Properties Revised Master Plan.
All right, PL 2334, Resolution 5323, Wrench Ranch Properties Revised Master Plan. So actually these 4 topics tonight, they're going to go to Planning Commission shortly after this meeting and to go through their process. This master plan is Wrench Ranch Phase 2, located south of I-90, north of Yellowtail Drive. The request is to revise the Phase 2 master plan to include a light industrial zone, which is only in Wrench Ranch Phase 1 currently, and reclassify a portion of Parcel 4, which it actually is lots 2 and 3 of the Eagle View subdivision. We don't have that recorded yet until they get their water rights figured out, but so there may be some crossover between Parcel 4 and lots 2 and 3 of the Eagle View subdivision. Those 2 lots are currently zoned mixed use, and there's part of it's commercial as well. So the proposal is to rezone those to light industrial using similar criteria as Wrench Ranch Phase 1, with the biggest change being to increase the metal usage from 15% to 75%. There's some There's been a couple variances in Ranch Phase 1 for that. There are some new types of metal, maintenance-free. The master plan does state to use earth tones as well as a matte finish. We've been told originally the limit was put on the metal because of the shiny nature, the sun glaring off of it, and so it does require a matte finish. There is still no outdoor storage in this area allowed. So these, if you recall, we give you a subdivision. This portion's here zoned HE, that was lot 1, cut on the ditch. So lot 2, which would be the potential rezone, is here. And then lot 3 is right here. Those two would be zoned from mixed use to light industrial with the increased metal usage. Those are the lots right here. Also zoned gateway with an overlay of entryway corridor. There's parcel 4. This is technically what it is right now, is parcel 4 until we record that plat. There's an exhibit. So there's a master plans come with a sheet of criteria. It's been revised. Some of the uses have actually been changed. Really hard to, well, actually this one's a little bit easier to read. You can still see there's no outside storage. One use they added was manufacturing facilities, research facilities, and other necessary uses as determined by the planning director as accessory uses to the main use. The request is to revise, include light industrial, rezone lots 2 and 3 to light industrial, and the biggest takeaway is the increased metal usage from 15 to 75. Are there any questions?
Questions for Hans on this one?
Yeah, just one. As this resolution and the one to follow, the 3 of them, we'll see that again after the Planning Commission reviews it.
Correct,
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Brandt. Yes, we'll review it tonight in front of planning, and then it'll be 3 readings.
Okay.
Right? No, 1. Resolution, single reading.
Hans, could you go back to the one where it shows it in relation to the interchange?
Excuse me.
This one?
Yeah.
So it's this,
I'm
yeah,
just trying to get my bearings on this one.
yeah, I think Vacutech's here,
Okay, I know where we're at.
yeah. Weatherby, Vacutech's over here.
Oh,
Yeah, these are the commercial
those are the-
lots.
Right. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. You're still on, Hans. Discussion of PL 2327, Resolution 6023, Mortensen Minor Subdivision. And with us again is our director, Hans Mercer.
All right, PL 2337, Resolution 60-23, the Mortensen Minor Subdivision located east of I-90, north of Brundage Lane. The request is to subdivide 2.16 acres of Lot 19 of the Sheridan Commercial Park from 1 lot into 2 lots currently zoned M1 as a commercial industrial occupancy. I'll show you on the plat, there's a recorded 20-foot access easement. It does come with a variance because per code it should be 25 feet, but it's been existing for many years. What they're doing is taking this parcel right here that contains this building. The access actually comes back up to this building as well, and this building here. They want to carve off this front building to be a separate parcel, and then this 20-foot access still remains in effect to all 3 adjoining lots. Zoned M1. There's that access easement here. Coming up here, all the way to the back, has a hammerhead fire truck turnaround. Here's a zoomed in version of the plat. So essentially these 2 lots are a single lot right now. They prefer to cut that off, most likely to change owners. Retain the access. Are there any questions?
Any questions on this one? Pretty straightforward, really. Hans, you're still on. Discussion of PL 2342, Ordinance 2273, rezone of 2530 and 2580 Dry Ranch Road.
Very good, yeah, PL 2342, ordinance 2273. It's the rezone of the addresses at 2530 and 2580 Dry Ranch Road. These are located east of the interstate, directly west of Dry Ranch Road. The petition is to rezone those two addresses from B1 existing to a B2, which would allow outside storage. They're currently unplatted properties. The city does own a 40-foot strip of land in front of these, which will be utilized someday for future right-of-way of Dry Ranch Road improvements, which is currently in the county. So the Dry Ranch Road, our city limits right here. We were granted this strip of land a while ago for future. We've been slowly whittling away at increasing the right-of-way, so for someday when the city grows in that area, would have enough right-of-way to, if we were to improve Dry Ranch Road with the county. These are the two properties here. Zoned B1, they're surrounded by B2, and the applicant would like to rezone to B2 so they can have the outside storage and extended uses of those properties. There they are there on the plats. You can see the strip of land the city owns on each one. There's our notification list. Are there any questions?
Questions on this one for Hans?
Just one, you said there's a notification list, so that it has been sent out?
Yes.
When was it sent out?
At least 15 days ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything? No? Okay, thank you, Hans. I'm sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
This is just a general question, I guess, since you were up the last four here. When this is all brought forward and everything, do they talk to you about what their use is going to be for the land, what they're possibly going to do with it?
Commonly they do. A lot of times that's in the design review committee meeting. I'm sure they've talked to Tom. Have they talked to you about it?
Yes.
Yes, they have.
Yes, they have. One of the property owners actually own both lots currently. They have a building permit in, I believe it is for the southern lot down there. They have a landscaping business. Totally allowable in B1, but with a lot of the landscaping equipment that they have, they would like to be able to utilize some of the outside storage on that lot for some of it. B1 would allow it, but they would have to build garages and structures to house everything internally, and this was just a easier, better option for them.
Okay, and I guess I'm asking this question in general for the last four. It's like, we never really hear about what's planned with that property. All it is rezoning it. And it would be nice to really kind of know what their plans are for this, because to be honest with you, that's what I get questioned on the most. And in the future is, well, what are they planning on doing with that? And I understand it's a property owner and they do what they want with their property. But when we're rezoning it, it seems like I should kind of know where they're headed with this too, you know?
You bet. Yeah, Mayor, Council Member Lumen, we could certainly attempt to get some of that information. We just wouldn't want the decision to be made solely on that because it could change seconds after the presentation and go to any use in a B2 zone. Yeah.
Thank you, Hans.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're on to item number 5, discussion of bid award to Wayne Coleman Construction Incorporated for the 2023 crushing project in the amount of $59,307. And with us is our city engineer, Thomas Morneau. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the bid award for the 2023 crushing project. It consists of crushing 3,670 cubic yards of concrete and asphalt into gradations no greater than 1 1/4 inches. The concrete rebar will be crushed and any excess rebar will be hauled off to be recycled. All this work will be done at the Sheridan landfill. We generally do a crushing project every 1 to 2 years anyway, depending on the projects going on in the city. The project was advertised in October 11th, 20th, and 23rd, and a pre-bid conference was held on October 25th. There's just a picture of this concrete pile out there. Well, I'm not going to zoom in on it, but you can see it's pretty big. A lot of that concrete and asphalt has come from, obviously, the Main Street project, but also up at North Heights and various other city projects around town. So it's grown pretty big. There's a kind of a map there that shows the area in the landfill where that pile is, and then where it will be hauled to for the rebar to be recycled. The bid opening took place on November 2nd. We received one bid from Wayne Coleman Construction for the amount of $59,307. City staff recommends that Mayor and City Council award the 2023 crushing project to Wayne Coleman Construction, Inc., the lowest qualified bid, in the total amount of $59,307, and that Mayor and Council authorize Public Works Director to act on behalf of the Council and Mayor in all matters in this project. The project is funded out of the Pavement Preservation Projects Fund. This is because the crushed concrete and asphalt is reused for various city projects, a lot on pathways, backfilling. The utility maintenance guys use it quite a bit as well. It makes great road base, so it's widely used. It's used by city for various divisions. Those are the key points. Are there any questions?
Questions for Hans for this one? Oh, sorry, Thomas.
Take it as a compliment.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, item number 6, discussion of drug and alcohol plan updates. With us are Human Resource Director Heather Doak and City Attorney Brendan Kearns.
Mayor, Council, thank you. So the employee policies, drug and alcohol, there's two parts to this. There's the human resources, or the employee handbook, and then the drug and alcohol. They're kind of two separate policies here. But legally, they're personnel policies. So for that reason, we're moving forward. Legal background here, charter ordinance says city administrator sets the general policies. Code then calls this one specifically out, and so does statute, that your personnel policies have to be approved by your governing body. So this policy was last updated in 2010, so 13 years ago. There's been a number of changes in the laws and also just change in the nature of our environment. So it was necessary to update this. We went through a series of edits. The basic ones were the definitions, differentiate between alcohol, illegal drugs, prescription drugs, those things. Clarification and formatting changes, and an employee's right to contest. So, overview of what this policy says. Prohibited conduct. Use, possession, solicit for or sale of narcotics, illegal drugs, medication without a valid prescription, or other mind-altering substances. So employees are not allowed to use those while they're employed unless they have a valid prescription. Pre-employment testing. So all new employees have to take the test. That's pretty standard. If they fail the test, they don't get a job. We also have testing requirements for post-accident. So there's an accident that occurs in the city. Let's say someone's driving their garbage truck along and takes out a light pole. If there's reason to believe that this person needs to be tested, they undergo that test. Refusal are grounds for dismissal. So there is a requirement in order to obtain that test. You also have requirements for random testing. So there's two categories. Random testing employees, everyone with a CDL, and then everyone involved in the health and safety. So water treatment plant, health, fire, police. There's probably a couple others there that Heather could mention to you that fall within those categories. They're selected based off of a computer-based generator. It's a number-generated system, so it's completely random. It's not human-selected or human-devised. And then there's a specific federal law that requires on how that's supposed to be administered. Then we have a reasonable suspicious testing. So this occurs when a supervisor or department head involved with something at work sees someone and there's questions. What's going on here? So an employee demonstrates behavior that leads to suspicion of drug or alcohol use during work time. And that can be found, that suspicion can come from three different things. So the last two are easy. Physical signs and some symptoms consistent with substance abuse. Illegal possession of illegal substance use while on duty. So It's found on you, it's found in your vehicle, whatever it may be. The other one is a little bit more complicated, the top one there. Adequate documented pattern of unsatisfactory work performance in which there's no apparent reason. Changes in an employee's prior pattern of work performance, especially if there was some evidence of drug or alcohol related behavior on or off the work site. What a supervisor or department head is looking at. You have that individual that was a great employee. We've all known those people in our lives, and then something starts to change. Start showing up to work late. Maybe they're not as attentive as they used to be. Maybe they're not bathing regularly like they used to. You start seeing these things add up to a point where they're no longer performing adequately at work, and so that there can be a basis for a reasonable suspicion testing. So disciplinary actions. Pre-hire, as I mentioned, no employment. An employee's first violation, the city determines whether to dismiss. It really depends upon the severity of the situation. One violation does not necessarily mean that there is a reason to dismiss. There are a number of different resources that are provided in the policy and that the city provides to help people with substance abuse issues. And maybe that's the best course of action. Or maybe it's so severe that there is no choice but to dismiss. Employees that are subject to the civil service process, you see this throughout this policy. At any time that there's testing, any time there's disciplinary actions, that all then ends up getting funneled through that civil service process. And I didn't include that in any of that because it's just by reference in this policy. Subsequent violations result in termination. Now there's a caveat to this. Again, it's a little bit based off of the situation. You could have someone with a valid prescription that tests positive one time and negative and then positive a second time. In a different situation, you might end up saying, we need to work through this. So that's where this discretionary part comes in. So you get a positive test. That doesn't mean you're automatically dismissed or even subject to disciplinary action. There's a review of that positive test. So the first review actually occurs at the medical office. The medical review officer reviews those positive results. So that's before the city even is really dealing with it. This is occurring at your medical facility. Then the next question, is there a valid prescription? And if there is a valid prescription, well, then you know why you got a positive test. There's no problem, provided that the employee was responsible and notified the supervisor of a potential impairment. You don't want someone driving a big bulldozer around if they have been prescribed a narcotic of some sort and they haven't told their supervisor. So there is a positive obligation on the employee to notify their supervisor or their department head of potential problems. So they can be subject to discipline when they failed to notify. They did not provide proof of prescription when asked. So they say, I have a valid prescription, and the city's first response is going to be provide us proof, and then they fail to. Or misuse of recommended, of how it's supposed to be used. So you're supposed to have 1 Oxycontin a day and you take 6. That's an example of a misuse. They then have a right to contest that positive test. They notify HR within 5 days. The city administrator will review those results and determination after it's gone through HR. So there's kind of a second step in this before any disciplinary action is taken. So you could end up with circumstances where you have a positive test, it fits all of the reasons for a disciplinary action, but maybe there's a circumstance that no one's really aware of. The last one is drug or alcohol conviction. So every employee must notify the city within 2 days of conviction for drug or alcohol violation of law. So you've gone through municipal or circuit court or even district court and there's a conviction. CDL and health and safety personnel must notify as soon as possible. So of course, health and safety, a lot of those are going to go through the civil service. CDL creates a major problem because if you're convicted, you're going to lose your license. So that there's more than just the fact that maybe there's a substance abuse issue. It has a direct effect then on their ability to perform their job. With that, Mayor, Council, are there any questions?
Questions?
I have one question, please. Under the random testing, under, let's see, it would be letter B. Upon being notified to run the test, the employee supervisor shall take the employee to the testing facility. Is that new?
It is.
And then why?
So it was always standard practice. That's what happened, but it wasn't in the policy. The reason you don't want to rely on an individual that has a problem to be the one driving them to the facility. You need a controlled, boy, this sounds awful. You need to be able to control the specimen. You have to make sure that when they're going from point A to point B, that it's a controlled environment. So that's the reason it was added.
The reason I bring that up is because I've worked both with the state and also with the school district. And you go down to get tested, you have to give a driver's license, and, you know, it's pretty much you. They watch you. And, well, they don't watch you actually, but I mean, you know, they make sure it's you, and they make sure that the test is proper. Usually, most of the time, it's done after you've come to work. It's been a couple hours at work, and they send you off. Does that create a little bit of a hardship to get two people gone every time for a test?
Go ahead, Heather.
So the supervisor can pick the time that they tell the person and take them there. It's not like when I call them and say, hey, your
Right.
employee has a random test. So they pick the time when they take them.
Right.
So we have not had that problem. We have had an issue where an employee drove themselves to the test and tested positive. Well, then what do you do with them? They shouldn't be driving,
Right.
and they've already driven themselves to do the test. Doesn't happen very often, but again, yeah, it's that controlled environment once they're told by their supervisor. But the supervisor can pick the time. They have basically a whole month to be able to get it done.
How many, say from the pool of CDL drivers, how many do you do per month?
It's a percentage, and it's set by that CFR 125. Our testing facility has those numbers. They know how many they have, and they know how many they have to pick every month. It's usually right around 2 every month.
Okay. Thank you.
So, point of clarification, I show up and I'm working and it's obvious that something's not right with me. So, well, there's something always not right with me. But at that point, I mean, you say you pick when you take them, but that's throwing me off a little bit. If you see somebody and they're obviously intoxicated or, you know, they're acting very strange, isn't it just, okay, let's go?
Mr. Mayor, that's a different situation because that probably would be a reasonable suspicion.
Okay,
The one that Councilor Brantz is talking about would be a random. You've been picked for a random.
okay,
And honestly, with even with our reasonable suspicion, it usually has to be a pattern of behavior unless it's really, really obvious.
sure.
Because everybody has an off day here and there. We aren't going to start taking people up every time they didn't get enough sleep the night before or whatever it might be. So that usually takes a pattern of behavior unless it is, again, very clear.
Okay, thanks for that
What's going on?
clarification. Yeah. Any other questions?
So,
Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, did I just step in front of somebody?
Well, go ahead. We'll get, there's a couple after you, so.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, I want to thank Brendan for the presentation. I did have a question. I think he said toward the beginning something about it was because of state statute was the reason that we were seeing this today. So my question is, why is this update being brought before council now?
Mayor, Councilman Patzik, because it's 13 years old, and Heather and I have been working on this since June.
Probably.
And finally got a break in our schedule to bring up this type of update.
Thank you. Was it required by statute to bring it before council?
Yes, council, statute and ordinance both require personnel policies to be approved by the governing body.
Okay. So on the last page of the drug and alcohol plan, then it says that it can be updated by the city administrator without the approval of the governing body. I'm just wondering if there was,
It
go
says
ahead.
in order to ensure compliance with federal and state law. So if federal law changes on a testing procedure, for example, or we lower the blood alcohol content, or raise it, whatever it may be, those adjustments are made because those are required by law.
Okay, so it is a limited scope of changes that can be made without the approval of the governing body.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
I think you were next.
So just out of curiosity, and I know I've been through this, Heather, what prompted I guess, I look at the sending a second person or taking them up to their random check. It's almost like you're guilty before you go. You know, you're saying, okay, I need to take you up to have your random test. And the reason being is because you could potentially test positive. And I know what this means to the fire department because now I get randomly checked. Now I got to have another guy take me up there and take me to the test. And I mean, you're taking two people out of that rotation to do this. Not that they can't respond on a call, but now the personnel's going in. So what is really driving the second person on a random test? I understand on a test, like you had an accident, two people have to go. I understand that because the person may have been under the influence and it's got to be covered because of the accident. But on this one, the random testing, I'm having a hard time getting that.
Mayor,
second person.
Councilman Lumen, really, it's a best practice. And we have done it before. That's always been what we've done. We just actually put it in the policy, so that's what they do. But it always has been it's a best practice, and it always has been what the supervisors have done, honestly.
Can I just amplify on this?
Certainly.
You know, we did a lot of drug testing in the military, and it was a best practice to have somebody accompany because, you know, we don't think about this a lot because we're, you know, for the most part, we're pretty straight shooters, but in the drug world, there are so many techniques that people have to overcome a drug test if you don't have somebody attending and stuff. So it is generally sought after as a best practice to have a person go with them to ensure that somebody isn't using a technique. When people's CDLs and their life, their livelihood is on the line, people who are, have a drug and alcohol problem will go to extreme measures to beat a test. And so this is just a good practice to make sure that it keeps honest people honest, and it just makes sure that when somebody's cleared that there wasn't a question that they were maybe dodging it too.
Go ahead, Council. I think you were next in the queue.
I'd have two questions. When you mentioned in there that they disclose a prescription, they need to disclose a prescription that that are taking that might inhibit their ability to do their job. Apparently, I'm inhibited in my ability to speak tonight. But do they have to disclose the medical reason for that prescription, or simply that they're just taking the prescription and what it is, or just that they're taking a prescription that may cause impairment?
Mayor, Councilwoman Jennings, just that they are taking a prescription that may cause
Impairment,
that they might not be able to do their job. They don't have to say what it is. They don't have to tell them why.
Okay.
Nothing except, hey, I'm on a prescription and I probably shouldn't be operating in equipment for a couple days until I figure out how it's going to affect me or whatever that may be.
Okay. And then my second question is more general in regards to policy changes. How does that get disseminated to employees? Let's say this gets approved as is. Do they get a copy that looks kind of like what we get that amplifies the changes so they're aware? Or do they just get hey, here's a new policy, you got to compare it to the old one and figure out what the changes are?
No, so Mayor, Councilwoman Jennings, what we do is we send out usually with a memo saying, hey, these are the changes.
Okay.
This is the new policy, and then you sign off on it and send it back.
Okay, so they have to sign that they
Yes.
agree to the new terms. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, I've been CDL tested a lot of times. And quite honestly, you go down and you give them a sample you don't even know for 3 or 4 days. They don't test it there. So, you could be stoned out of your head. You give them a sample, you drive back. So anyway, all I was saying is they're not gonna catch you when you go give a sample and they're gonna say, look at that, you're on drugs. They won't know for 3 or 4 days. So the reality of driving back, more than not, they're gonna be driving back. The only way they may not is if they don't pass the breathalyzer. But as far as drug testing goes, nobody knows for several days.
Mayor, Councilmember Rance, we also do random drug testing with our safety sensitive, and those you do know
Do
immediately.
you know immediately?
Absolutely.
Good to know.
Okay, anything else? You good to the group? No? Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Thank you, Brendan. We now move on to item number 7, discussion of employee handbook updates. And again, with us is Human Resource Director Heather Doak, City Attorney Brendan Kearns, and our City Administrator Stu McCray.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm gonna let Stu take the very first part of this, and as you've seen, Brendan and I are tag teaming, so if I need him to help with the handbook, he's sitting there to help me with that as well.
That sounds great.
So, Mayor, Council, when we opened up the employee handbook for review, we always have the mission, vision, and value statements in there. We've been recently looking at these things. In fact, I look at them all the time. I was looking today, and there's been, since I've been on board, we've had probably about 80-some employees new employees that we've garnered over that time. And so with every new employee, I always go over the mission, vision, and values. And we got to recognizing that although we talk about it a lot, certain things aren't discussed or aren't codified in any of our documents. I want to give you a kind of a little background. I know I sent an email out to all the council members on this, but I want to give a quick background on where we've gotten to in our mission, specifically our mission development process. In 2020, we went through a mission development process with the council. At the time, Mayor Bridger is the last person here that was on that in that process. But the governing body approved this mission statement that said that the city of Sheridan is dedicated to improving the quality of life of our citizens with emphasis on public safety, exceptional service, livability and infrastructure while being accountable and professional. That was the wording that they came up with during the course of reviewing what they wanted us to do on a daily basis. Fast forward to 2022, we went through a review process, or we were going through a strategic planning effort, and we coincidentally went through and we're reviewing how we look at our customers, if you will. The people that we serve, and we recognize that as a city staff, as a city, we serve 3 classes of customer. We have our citizens, the people who live here. We have the people who work in Sheridan, but don't necessarily live in Sheridan, so they come to Sheridan. These would be people that we rely on to operate the city, not just us, but in businesses and it's elsewhere. And then we have people who come here and visit, tourism and so forth. And we recognize that in our mission statement only referred to one of those 3 groups of people. And so in that process, I think some of you were in that process in 2022, we simply took out the word "the" and "of our citizens," and it was implied that everyone who lives, works, and visits Sheridan is someone that we are improving the quality of life for. So that was a simple fix on our mission statement. Then we went forward and we looked recently, and even though we talk about it a lot, we talk about the fact that we want to steward our resources that are entrusted to us, it's never been in any of our documents. And so we thought that we need to take and add that to it. We'd like to have that added so that future staff members and so forth, when they look at the mission statement, they don't think that we are going to improve the quality of life at any expense. We want to be responsible with how we approach improving quality of life. I think it's worth stating that. So we came up with adding this small phrase to it to say that the City of Sheridan is dedicated to improving quality of life through responsible stewardship of the resources entrusted to us, with emphasis on public safety, exceptional service, livability. Nothing else in the mission statement changes. It just adds the responsibility that we have to steward the resources entrusted to us. So with that, if council is okay with that, we will have this when we vote on when you vote on the employee handbook. That'll be included in a red line version of the employee handbook concept for you to consider. Are there any questions
Any questions?
or comments?
Sat down with Stuart, and I think it's a good addition. So that's my personal thought.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stu. Heather?
All right, it's back to me again. So our employee handbook, we try to keep this updated at least every couple of years so we don't come to you with a whole laundry list of things that need to be changed. Every once in a while, federal laws change, things change in the way we're doing business with the city. And so we have a couple of changes that we are proposing to the handbook. And again, the reason we're doing this is because it's required. The personnel policies are required by state statute for the governing body to approve, just like Brendan said before. I didn't repeat that in my presentation because you already heard it from Brendan earlier this evening. So the general employee handbook updates that we have are, first of all, we are updating the employee assistance plan. We're updating that to include an additional EAP program that we have through our health insurance plan. They offer this free of charge, and anybody who's on our health insurance is able to participate in this EAP. We are keeping the other EAP as well because we want to have the EAP available for not just our employees that are on the health insurance plan, but for all of our employees. So that's the only addition we're making to that employee assistance plan is the fact that we have two options. If our people are on the health insurance, they now have two options, but we want to make sure that all our employees have access to that. The second one is we're clarifying the policy of the employment for immediate family members. All of you know that we live in a small town, and if we didn't hire family members, we wouldn't have very many employees at the city of Sheridan, honestly. For the police department employees, the only thing that's changing is obviously they can't work on the same shift with each other, and they can't supervise each other. That was just a little bit of a clarification that we needed to make with the police department employees, so we've added that in. Nothing else has changed with the policy. We still don't allow other employees to supervise their family members either. So anyway, that small change needed to be made. The electronic use policy, that one's a pretty extensive one, but there were a couple of minor changes recommended by our IT manager. And so we put those in, and also our cybersecurity insurance provider. You'll be happy to know that we do have cybersecurity insurance, as any company should have these days. And we're updating that one just a little bit as well. Our vehicle policy. So this one, we found out there was a couple of things in that policy. Well, first of all, we had we found out we had a lot of different policies throughout the city that we didn't even know about. So we went back to, hey, this is the policy, what's in the handbook needs to be what's followed. And then there were a couple of things in there that didn't fall in line with our property and liability insurance. So honestly, it was our employees were a little bit at risk if they were doing some of those things and something happened that they wouldn't be covered under our liability insurance. It would fall under their own, which is not a good thing. So we've updated that policy to be compliant with those policies, the property and liability insurance policies. And then obviously we need to change the dates, saying what date this is effective. Appendix A, which is the positions, we always update that when we need to. We've added some positions, changed some position names, those kind of things, so that will be updated, as well as the pay scale, which was updated July 1st of this year, so we needed to put that updated pay scale in the employee handbook. So those are the general updates that we had made to the handbook. Any questions on that portion of it?
Questions for Heather? No. Sorry.
All right, let's move on to maybe the more fun changes. Many of you know that we did an employee survey a little while ago, and a lot of these changes came out from our employees out of that survey and from our employee survey committee. And when we sat down and said, hey, what can we do to make life better for our employees? What can we do to add some benefits that may not cost us anything, but they're going to cost us a whole, but it's going to make our employees' lives a lot better. We're trying to figure out how to keep these employees and retain them. So the first one is the vacation leave. We're going to change the accrual for the employees with 0 to 4 years of service from 80 hours to 96 hours per year. So that gives them 2 more days per year of vacation leave. I understand when people start out, sometimes that's not quite enough leave for them as they start out, so this is going to help. We do have a very, very generous leave policy, and we have a lot of employees. They can accrue up to 240 hours of sick leave, and we've got a lot of people that hover right around that 240. But a lot of our newer employees need that little bit more time off. So we figured that this wasn't going to be too much of a stretch for us to be able to do. Sick leave, page 9. So this is kind of one that's fallen through the cracks, I guess, if you ask me. And it may be because we do not have very many part-time employees. We have 5 part-time employees out of our 190 plus employees with the city of Sheridan. But up until this point, they have accrued vacation time, but they have not accrued sick time. So we are adding that as a benefit for our part-time employees. They get sick just like the rest of us. So I think this is only to be fair that we add. And of course it's prorated for the amount of hours they work. They don't earn quite as much as our full-time employees, but this will help our part-time employees. And then on holidays, page 10. So we had, again, a request for more time off. We looked at what holidays the city actually closes for and what we pay employees for. And then we looked at maybe some of the other federal holidays that we might be able to add in. And then there was an idea that came up that said, hey, instead of us closing for a whole day and choosing when our employees get to take time off, what if we just give them another personal day? They already have one personal day during the year that they can take whenever they want to. So it's a floating holiday, basically. So instead of adding another holiday where the city's closed, operations are closed, we're going to add another personal day for our employees so that they can take that time off again when they want to. One of the holidays we looked at adding was Equality Day, which is in January. You guys all know how lovely the weather is in January in Wyoming. So maybe they want to take it off in June instead of January. That's okay. And then just a note, these type of benefits that are in the handbook for the firefighters are included in their contract, not in the employee handbook. They take vacation time a little bit different than the rest of our employees. So what we have proposed to the firefighters is that, and we're going to add 2 additional personal days for them to their list of holidays for them to take. Instead of changing that vacation accrual like we are with the rest of the employees, we'll give them 2 more personal days. Obviously, this will have to be approved by the union. So if this is approved, we will open up that section of the contract. They will vote on it. If they approve it, then we'll change the contract and have that signed again. So I just wanted to let you know that theirs works a little bit differently for this portion of the handbook. All right, with that, any questions on any of that?
Questions for Heather? No?
I'm sorry. I have something, but it kind of encompasses both 7 and 8, so I'll just wait until the end of 8. If that
Okay.
works.
It's not, Heather. No questions.
All right. I think that's it then for that one.
That's where it's it's one and done.
There's another number on there that I'm in
Okay,
charge
I
of.
know.
So move on to your next one on your
Number
agenda, and that
8.
will be me as well, presenting at least.
Discussion of retention and recognition incentive. Human Resource Director Heather Doak.
All right, before I start, I'm going to hand this out really quick to you guys. So to begin with, I got the rose pinned on me to present this to you this evening. This has come about through a lot of collaboration with a lot of different people, again, city employees, staff, council. So we are proposing, again, out of our employee survey, we had a lot of different requests for different types of benefits that our employees thought would help them. Some of them that were proposed, we aren't allowed to do. Some of them would only affect different groups of people. So as we talked about it and kind of threw some ideas around, what we thought would be best was to do a bonus for our employees, a one-time bonus. We have money available. I guess that's at the end, but I will tell you that we do have money available just from the open positions that we've had during this budget year, so that we do have money available to be able to do this. Our idea with this is the fact that then the employees can use it for whatever they choose to use it for, instead of us telling them what they can use, what benefit we're going to give them. They can choose to use the money for whatever they want. We're calling it a retention and recognition incentive because we feel like our employees that have been here quite a while deserve some recognition for being here so long, but we also want to keep the ones that we've just hired. So we have come up with a tiered system that we kind of feel like will on both ends of that help our employees. So what we're proposing is for employees that have been here with us less than a year, we would give them a $300 bonus. Once you get up to 1 to 4.9 years of service, $500, 5 to 9.9 years, 950, 10 years to 14.9 would be $1,200, and then 15 years or higher would be a $1,500 bonus. I should also state that this is going to be based on years of service. We do have some employees that come and work for us, and then they go somewhere else. Maybe they think the grass is greener on the other side, and they decide it's not, and they come back, and we have lots of those employees, which we really appreciate. So we have decided that we're going to include all of their years of service to be able to pay out these bonuses. What else can I tell you about it? With that, I think I will answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
My question is, so you mentioned, so somebody who's worked for us for 5 years and they've been gone for 5 years, they come back for 1 year, we give them a 6-year bonus.
Yes.
And who thought of this? Was this part of the committee?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember who in the room actually came up with the idea, but everybody was like, yeah, let's do it.
It was unanimous with the working group.
Yeah,
All
once
department heads.
somebody came up with it, the rest of us thought, well, yeah, it makes sense. Anyway,
Doesn't to me, but thank you.
okay.
Questions? Yes, Councilor.
I'm sure this will come as a shock to everybody. I have some issues here outside of the personal ones that I have. So again, never a reflection on the employees and the duties that they perform. I always appreciate everything that they do. But again, we come back to, I guess let me start this way. How much, the money is coming from, remind me what the correct terminology is.
It's salaries that haven't been spent.
Unused salary, unspent
Yes.
salaries. Okay. So how much money is in that fund? Do we know off the top of our head? And if you don't, that's fine. It's kind of a random question.
Our treasurer, when I asked her, said there is probably, she told me around $260,000 is what we estimate by the percentage we are through the year and the percentage that we've actually used of wages.
Okay. And so how many positions is that, the open positions that we're trying to fill?
It depends on the time, because we've had some that were open and now filled, and then we had some that were filled and are now open, so it changes day to day.
Okay.
Let's tell you that much. So far this year, that's how much we haven't
And
used.
based off of the information that you gave us just now, about how much of that would be used for these bonuses?
Approximately 173,000.
Okay. So, I guess my question in that regard then becomes, we're only halfway through the year. How are we assured that we're not going to need some of that funding to fill positions we still have 6 months. I mean, just because they're open doesn't mean that they won't necessarily get filled or need to get filled.
That's why, Mayor, Councilwoman Jennings, that's why we've based it on the percentage of the year that we are through. And then match that with how much of the budget we've used. So we'll still have 100% of what we have budgeted for the rest of the year. That's why this is a one-time, and we don't know if that's gonna continue or not.
Okay, so we've set aside this money potentially for positions that should have been filled throughout the year.
Correct.
They are not getting filled for one various reason or another. Because that is now the case, are those empty seats then taken off of next year's budget? Because we're either not filling them or we have enough money to do this, so do we need to reevaluate how many open positions we have?
Mayor, Councilwoman Jennings, we would hope that we could fill all of those, but we have not been able to. Or it
Right.
takes time or it takes some time in between people leaving and being able to fill those positions, so.
Right. In an ideal world, the question just then becomes, well, what if we fill it all and now, we don't have that money available? So, I guess this is kind of where I'm landing on this. Again, not a reflection on anybody's job performance. We're sitting here with this money, that positions that we may or may not have filled, and I always see when we call extra money in the budget, it's taxpayer dollars, so at the end of the day, have we then taken too much from the taxpayer? And again, I understand where we fall in the chain of command for tax money coming to us and whatnot, but I get a little concerned, back to my interpretation, my opinion, interpretation of constitutional, we're trying to compete with the private sector. First off, is that the job of government to try to compete with the private sector? I don't know. But I guess what I would like to see before I put any type of support behind this is, what gets said to me when these come up is, and you said it yourself, people leave and they go, they think greener pastures or somewhere else, and then they find out they're not and they come back. I feel like that's actually probably fairly typical of government positions, is benefits are usually pretty good. But I don't see, and I don't know, and what I would like to see is, what is the private sector, a comparable private sector benefit in the city of Sheridan for somebody around the size of the city? And I get there's not a lot of them, but I mean, before I could make a decision to put any type of support behind this, I would like to see, and if maybe by next week, the top 5 businesses in Sheridan that are comparable employee size, what do their benefit packages look like? If we're going to try to say, hey, we want to do this to be comparable with the private sector so that we're retaining these employees, I would like to know what the private sector looks like so I can make an educated decision on this information. Is that possible to get some form? It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be, but, something that looks like, hey, Walmart pays, this many holidays, or they pay comparable to what we are wanting to offer. And I would just like to see that information.
Mayor, Councilor Jennings, if I can address that. I don't know if we can get that information, but this summer this fall, I was at the ICMA conference in Austin, Texas, and then I was recently at a statewide meeting with other city administrators, managers around the state. This is a national and statewide problem. Everybody is facing this right now, and it's not our job to try to set the wage of the private industry, but it is our job to try and keep employees. And when we are bleeding employees like we are, I've got, how many, Travis? 7 fire or police department vacancies right now. So what that means is that I've got people pulling extra shifts, and I've got people working longer hours to cover for that, to make sure that we are meeting the safety standards. We set the budget every year for 100% employment. And because we have to. I mean, you can't go into it thinking, okay, we're going to set it at 75% because we don't think that everybody's going to be here. We expect people to be hired, and we shoot for that. But the fact of the matter is this year and recent years has been an anomaly where we've been bleeding people like crazy. In fact, since COVID, we've been bleeding people like crazy because everybody's competing for employees. And so we got people who will leave us because they've got a CDL and they go work for the mine. And then they realize, like Heather said, that it is a pretty good place at the city. We do a good job, and some of them come back. But the fact is, not everybody comes back, and we've got a lot of people, especially in some of these really technical and critical positions, that we've got to be able to attract. Our means of doing that is both retention, pay, and also recognizing the people who have been with the city and validating that. We went through several different options that we looked at, and we had one that was just based purely on the time that they had. And honestly, when we looked at that across the board, we said that, you know, for people who are at the low end, who just started with the city, been here with just a few years, it'd be a slap in the face. And we probably send a message to them that we don't really value them to try to retain them. And those are the people that oftentimes are the fastest to leave. And so we're trying to both retain our workforce. We've had quite a bit of turnover in our workforce precisely because there have been higher paying jobs in the private sector. So that's what we're trying to stem with this thing, is to ensure that we can keep a viable workforce because people expect the services that we provide.
And I appreciate that explanation. I understand where it's coming from. I think we have to be a little bit more open in that regard, that, you know, it's not that we're not getting employees strictly because our benefit package doesn't look great. I mean, we've got the housing issue, we've got, you know, the living environment issue, the cost of stuff that has gone through the roof. So it's not, I mean, I don't feel like probably every decision that somebody makes is, well, the benefit package doesn't look that great to me, you know, and so I'm not going to take that job. And I'm not saying that I'm not, you know, I'm saying I want to see some numbers, because again, we hear all the time, well, private sector can do this, private sector can do that, private, you know, we have to compete in a certain area to private sector. And I would just like some hard numbers to chomp on and say, oh, you know what, hey, the 5 biggest businesses in town offer way better benefits because A, B, C, and D. If I suspect correctly, they're probably tightening their belts as well because of the environment which we're living in right now. And so I would like to see this information, and I don't know that we're to the point where, you know, if we can't get it by next week's meeting, we can't table this and put it on the next meeting. I don't think that probably this is going to cause it to be pushed out too far. I again, you know, last 2 years, you know, that's all I'm asking. The comparables to the city, you know, within 50 employees on each side.
We're always interested in what other places are doing, and you see them in signs in windows. You know, Subway had a sign there for $16, $18 for a starting wage for somebody just putting sandwiches together, when, you know, that's some of our lower end wages here at the city for technical jobs. And so we'll see what we can do. I just can't promise it. In a lot of cases, you know, all these businesses, they're trying to attract people. They're not necessarily going to be sharing with us what they're paying everybody, when in order for us to be able to pay our folks, you know, a competing wage. You know, there's competition in there too. So
I'm
we'll
not
see what we
asking
can do.
salary information, specific salary information. I'm more asking, you know, what holidays do they pay? How much sick time do they get? How much vacation time? Because that seems to be where we're kind of focusing on changing these benefits, is in that regard. I mean, we've already dealt somewhat and continue to deal with the wage side of it. So I'm more interested in the benefit side for some of these businesses. So.
Again, we'll try and see what we can do. I just don't know if all that stuff is available to us, but we'll do the best we can.
Yes.
Mayor, Councilwoman Jennings, it is difficult to get that information, honestly, from the private sector. They are a lot more closed-lipped than the others. And I will tell you, we've done, this portion of it, at least with the bonus part of it, is dealing with wages a lot more than benefits. And I will tell you right now, our employees are struggling. Most of our employees could care less what the benefits look like at this point. I mean, I hate to say that, but at this point, they don't care that we have a pension. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and they need to be able to more than live paycheck to paycheck. So I'm just finding out that the employees right now don't care about the benefits. Things like the vacation time and those, upping those a little bit gives them a little bit more time off. But as far as being able to put money into their pension or into the 401k, or it's a 457 for us or things like that, it's just not even on their mind because they're living paycheck to paycheck. So this would help them a little bit on the wage side of it. Obviously, we've got a little bit on the benefits coming. But I will definitely try to ask about benefits. But a lot of times you're comparing apples to apples as well when you're looking at benefits, because there's different, as far as health insurance, pensions, 401k, all of those, they're so different that you're comparing apples to apples when you're doing that. So just be aware of that, and I will ask the question. They don't have to give us the information. So it's again, very, very difficult to get that information.
I know that the state does an employer survey, and I don't know if maybe that would be beneficial, because I've had a couple now with several different jobs that I have where they ask some of that information. Again, whether they provide it or not, I don't think it's probably required by law, but I do know the state does some of that, so that might be a good place to start. And thank you.
Counselor?
Yeah, Heather, we're not just competing against the private sector, we're also competing against other municipalities, isn't that true?
Councilman, I feel like we are, yes.
Okay. Questions?
I got one, can I just say, one thing that really I struggle with being on the council. You know, I think in the last couple of years, we've tried to look at our salary, and we've had a bump up in salary, have we not? What was our last 2 years, what salary bumps been? Wasn't it like a 5 and a 6% and
We
in
gave,
total?
Mayor, Councilman, we gave a straight set number to all employees, so it varied based on what person got paid initially.
Right.
And then this last budget, we gave a
4%.
4% increase. So that first one caused some compression between workforce and management, their supervisors. And so, but all told, I probably averaged, the average one was probably around 10%, which was about what I've talked to other places around the state. That's about what everybody was doing. In fact, some were doing more than that.
Well, the concern I have is, as a council, you know, we have to look at salaries and we have to look at benefits. When this first came out to me, you know, I thought, well, that's great. You know, we give everybody a little bonus for Christmas. I was thinking, you know, a couple hundred, $300-400 each, right across the board. Everybody, here's a Christmas bonus. Well, then it became a little bit larger amount of money. And I said, well, I'll buy into the tiered system. And then this tiered system got pretty high too. But being on council, you must understand, we have to deal with the public. And so the perception when the public thinks that I stand up here and I possibly vote for these kind of compensations, they don't probably think that too favorably. I know that the city employees are hurting. I know they are. Everybody's hurting. Everyone's hurting. And so I think as a council, you know, we need to take this into consideration when we set salaries. But I'm really concerned about labeling a bonus for what the public might perceive us as being, again, stewards of their money. That's just all I have to say.
Okay. Counselor?
I'm not going to make a long statement. Okay, I am. No, I just wanted to say, one question up front was the less than a year, the 300. You're trying, I noticed it's 300 to 500 and then it starts dropping down. Is that really to try and keep those 2 to 5 year employees that just tend to take off after that time? that you're trying to have an effect on
Mayor,
that?
Councilman Lumen, I hope so.
Okay.
I can't tell you what it's gonna do, but we hope handing them $500 will help a little bit with the situation they're all in, and anyway.
Okay, with the holidays, couple things. One thing, which I know a few people were at the chamber luncheon last week. It was stated by Dixie Johnson that, she's the head of the chamber, that even if everyone went back to work that was not working anymore and that were on government benefits, whatever, the entire United States, if they all went back to work, we're still 3.2 million people short in the workforce, even if everyone went back to work. And so what that really told me was that we are fighting for those people that are already working and trying to keep them in our workforce here. The other thing I was going to mention, and this comes back from being an employee here, trying to apples with fire, PD, even utilities, garbage. It's really difficult to go apples to apples because they're so different, especially where do you have a private fire department? Where do you have a private law enforcement? You just don't have it. So you're looking for the next best thing that you can compare it to, and it's not a true apples to apples. The other thing, longevity, we used to have longevity pay, but we took that away. I would not underestimate the amount of impact this has as a statement for the council to say to an employee, I value you, I value what you do. We all say that, but this is our way of showing that and saying, right before Christmas, all right, we're looking at a bonus here. One-time shot, kind of thing. It does have an impact. It does have an impact on an employee and how they feel that we feel about them as their employers. So I would not underestimate the message that we're sending out to. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Sean.
Yeah, just like to thank all the counselors for all the dialogue. There's a lot to think about here, and also thank Heather and all the departments for, bringing this forth to the council. I think, about our values as a city: build trust, promote teamwork, take initiative, which you guys have done, and show optimism. And I stand behind those values. I feel like what we have here between the council and our employees is a relationship, just like any relationship. And, like our employees have spoken, it's very clear to me. And, I would like to take it from the other side of, rather than going and doing research in the private sector. I think setting the precedent as a city in the leadership and actually showing that we value our employees and strengthening that relationship between our local government and our employees would shine a light out to the community, that because this devaluing of employees is a community-wide issue, and I see it amongst restaurateurs, I see it in different industries in town, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to show that we do value our employees and that we want to keep them here as long as we can.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none?
Mayor,
Yes.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Yes, thank you. This is an interesting conversation. I hear a lot of talk about valuing employees when our decisions need to be made based on what is right for a municipality, not simply based on whether or not we value our employees, which we definitely do. But we need to understand we are a municipality. End of year bonuses, Christmas bonuses, those are part of private industry. They're part of private industry because private industry makes profit. Profit that is not, when a company doesn't make profit, then those end of year bonuses don't come. But we're not just talking about end of year bonuses tonight. We're talking about an update to the employee handbook that increases several other benefits. At the same time that we're talking about increasing benefits, we've got our human resources director telling us that the employees don't care about benefits. Yet the majority of what we're talking about here is increasing benefits. So, and there's also been mention of, well, we need to value those employees that have been here for a long time. Well, I agree. And we do. People who have been here 25 or more years get a full 6 weeks of vacation. People who have been here less get less. There is a value applied to longevity. There's also a contrary to that of if you're already given out the reward for people who have not worked as long with the city, then you're removing part of the incentive to stay longer with the city, because the rewards and the benefits that they would work their way up to, well, they're already getting a bunch of those. So anyway, when it comes to a Christmas bonus for the employees, we need to understand that we are a municipality. We're not dealing with surplus money that we earned. We're dealing with surplus money that was taken by source from the people in the form of taxation, sent to Cheyenne and then sent back to Sheridan. We're talking about extra money in that regard, taxpayers' money. We need to be good stewards of that taxpayers' money. When people take jobs with the city, they understand that the situation that they're going into is one of increased benefits. I mean, we're talking about 11 holidays? And a proposed, 11 holidays. I mean, if we're going to talk about private sector comparisons, I mean, I get 7. We're talking about adding an 11th for the city employees. And if we're going to be comparing compensation, which we've heard multiple times from the city administrator and from the human resources director, and we're not including benefits in that comparison, then we're not comparing the full set of data. Benefits are a significant form of compensation for employees. And in the past year, we got an equivalent 10% raise for the employees. So, I mean, listening to the presentation tonight, you'd think that the employees weren't given a thing, and that they're all struggling because the city is not giving them enough. When it comes down to it, we need to make the decision about the increased benefits and whether or not a Christmas bonus should be given. We need to make that decision based on our responsibility to the taxpayer and to the citizens, not just the city employees. And I'll give you another bit of data. I know municipal workers in other towns, and I placed a phone call and asked if any bonuses, end-of-year bonuses or Christmas bonuses were given. And the answer was no. So when I spoke to the mayor about this being put on the agenda and cautioned that it might not be perceived well, it was because doing something along this nature kind of makes us seem, and we keep talking about it's a one-time thing. Well, it was a one-time thing last year too. So it's turning into an annual one-time thing. But we are going to give the impression to the citizens that we represent that we don't really understand much about how to operate a city government because we're a municipality giving end-of-year bonuses. We talk about different industries. If a person's going to take a job as a police officer, working at the coal mine, working as a nurse, they understand that if they go into that position, they're almost certainly going to have a few night shifts. And that they understand that going into the job. People that take jobs with municipalities understand that end-of-year bonuses, Christmas bonuses, that's something that happens in the private sector. But taking a job with the city comes with pretty nice benefits. I mean, what was it, 11.07% that's paid into a state pension fund for each city employee of their 11.07% of their salary, whether they put in any money at all. I mean, that's a good deal. I don't get that deal. So when we're talking about a comparison and retention, we need to be making sure that if we're talking about losing employees, I mean, the city administrator said that we're bleeding employees. That's very colorful language. But to every single person that hears the term bleeding employee, that's a completely different value in their head. It's colorful language, but it doesn't tell what the actual numbers are, such as how many positions have been open. Well, we got the answer of, it changes. Okay, I understand that, but are we talking 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 50? I mean, ballpark is what we're looking for when we're asking these kinds of questions. So, in conclusion, I don't think that considering these types of compensations is necessarily being a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars. There are differences that each person understands when they take a job. And this is widely known about municipal jobs. Heavy on the benefits, lose out on some of the other perks. So, and I guess that's where I'll end it. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I'll just say two things. Right now, we stand at about 15 vacancies right now. That's about 7.5% of our workforce. So to me, that's significant numbers. And just to correct the record, we don't get 6 weeks of vacation time. That's a misnomer. The maximum time an employee can have is 240 hours, which equates to 4 weeks. So it's still substantial, but that has to build up over time. And the information that Heather was talking about is the lower end. They get maybe 8 hours, 8 days a year at right now, and this would build them up to around 10 per year, I think.
anything else from council?
Mr. Mayor, just one other thing, the difference in cost from the first plan that we kind of were looking at to this plan is $6,000. So it's not significant in cost. I would tell you that much. And the other thing, just one other thing, as far as the Wyoming retirement system goes, our employees do pay into that Wyoming retirement system as well as the city.
Right.
And they're required to pay into that system.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in. I don't have the heartburn that Councilor Patzig has. I think it's a good way to show your employees that you appreciate what they do and that you support them. And it's not a phenomenal cost. I know with our meetings we have every Tuesday, we go through the list of job placements that we still need and the ones that were added and the ones we've completed. But I think this just shows the employees that we recognize their value. And so I don't have the issue with it, but we'll just see how the vote goes. That being said, I think we're pretty much done.
Mayor, if I may, just a quick correction, 240 hours divided by 8 hours a day is 30 days. You divide that by 5 work days in a week, and that is 6 weeks.
Okay.
Councilman, you are correct. I was thinking 7-day work weeks. You're right. Thank you.
Okay. That being said, I see we're bumping up against the other meeting, so everybody will have a good night and we'll see you down the road.